here? I guess we'll find out. Game number 1, we find ourselves on the map El Sayani, and spotting right here in the top right-hand corner from South Korea, it's Dark.
A man who has won pretty much everything besides IEM Katowice, so I'm sure that he's got his eyes on that. In the bottom left side, we are looking at the main base of the man who found a lifeline. He is roommates with one of the best Zerg players on the planet. That should help him a little. This is Team Liquid's SKillous.
Well, I don't know about a cannon rush. I would be very surprised if that ends up happening.
Tiny chance if Dark would have opened up at the gold. That's actually something that makes you see gating forwards, and seems that SKillous has done his homework. He knows that Dark likes to take hatch first at the gold, and I guess SKillous does not want to cannon rush it. But what he can do is obviously warp in a pile, and that is what he's going to do. It's kind of annoying for Dark. Dark's like, all right, mate, you have it. I'm just going to take my natural then. But this is still nice, right? Because Dark sent this drone all the way there. Now he can take the base. I do think that SKillous should cancel that pile.
Absolutely.
I don't think you want to let it finish up.
No, that hatchery needed to be taken elsewhere already. If Dark still had that drone around, maybe he would have kept it. But I don't think keeping it around will work out positively most of the time. Already though, right, StarCraft II is very much so a mental game as well, especially when you're playing a long series late into the day. Just getting that small edge right at the very start, that haha, I got you now moment, it's a nice way to begin a match.
Especially because Dark probably plans something that comes into play with this gold, where you get your creep spread out a bit earlier, Queens, Roaches, Ravagers, or Queen, Lings, and Banes. That's something that Dark is very fond of. Could have just waddled to the other side of the map and potentially tried to all-in the Protoss, while the Protoss is trying to stabilize on 3 bases. So whatever Dark had in mind is going to be very different here. That's not necessarily bad news. What I'm just very curious about, Loco, in this best of 5 is Dark going to do some of these weird attacks where he's very low on drones and he just rallies everything to the other side of the map and be like, I don't think this can work. And then it works anyway, and that's incredibly impressive. Or are we going to see a little more macro-oriented Dark, where he is willing to be a bit more like Serral, where he goes up to 4 bases quickly, 5 bases, saturates them, rushes out Hive, because Dark is an incredibly good Hive tech player. I love how Pig mentioned that game 1 against Showtime. He went for the Queen Ling Nidus all in, and I want to say it went about as bad as it ever could have, because he killed basically nothing, and obviously Showtime had a lot of static defenses. Showtime had a 25 worker lead, and then Dark still managed to survive for a while, drag it into the somewhat later stages of the game, and sure, he ended up losing, but I looked at the game and was like, man, Dark, if you're so good at this, if you're so good at surviving, imagine if you would try to play this game while not being that far behind. Then you'd be an absolute animal. So I kind of hope that we get to see a bit of both. I love crazy Dark, I love aggressive Dark, but I kind of want him to show us as well that he's perfectly capable of playing a defensive style of Zerg, and yeah, just kind of sit back, retreat, defend properly, macro up, and take it from there.
No, you're absolutely right. That is certainly a theme we've seen over the years in Dark's games, where when he goes for an aggressive, strange push, either it wins the game and he looks brilliant, or he falls pretty far behind. And whenever he's in a situation where he's behind, it kind of feels like he's going Super Saiyan, you know? He powers up, he gets better when he is in a situation that he's not been in before. He does a lot of strange strategies for sure. There are games where he does play very normal, especially when there's a lot of prestige and money on the line, like for example for IEM Katowice. A couple months ago, especially in the weekly cups, he was going proxy hatch every single game, and he still could mix that in, as we do have a
nice timing here.
Going around. He actually gets the wraparound on one of the adepts for just a moment, but that third is dead.
Yep, Void Rays don't kill Lings as quickly as Oracles do, as the Oracle is in the main base on the other side of the map. Can we confirm that this was a cancel, by the way, for SKillous? Yes, he did manage to cancel it, so he only lost 100 minerals there, but this is already Dark. He shows up on a moment where SKillous does not want him to show up, and that Nexus could have been 40% done. Now it's just being warped in, and SKillous is already pretty unhappy with this. I guess he's not too happy that his Oracle didn't find any damage either, because normally it's a bit of a trade-off, right? It's like, okay, if you make a lot of links to cancel my Nexus, then at least my Oracle on the other side of the map should be able to find something. Well, it found something, Loco, but 2 drones, that is not enough to justify temporarily losing your Nexus.
You're absolutely right. About a 30-second delay right there on that third Nexus from SKillous. Stargate opener not really achieving all too much. One of the main advantages of going for example, double or even triple Oracle is that you can deal damage on the other side of the map while also take your third freely. And well, in this particular instance, that Void Ray had killed an Overlord, but I don't think that quite makes up for that forced cancel on the third. It's going to be a charge load follow-up, by the way.
No, I mean, SKillous maybe took a look at some of those games of Hero and it's like, all right, so 3 bases, 8 gateways, Zealot charge +1. I think I can do that. I mean, that's the ultimate ladder build, right? And I saw it a few times in the Masters Coliseum. I was like, yeah, but there's no way that Dark's going to die to this. And then he did kind of die to it. But eventually, Dark obviously started to do better against the build. And I think overall, the Zergs in general started to do better. But Hero often did this build with a perfectly clean start. And he would cut like a little corner here and a little corner there. I have the feeling that SKillous is almost doing this more defensively than he's doing it offensively. But you can obviously always warp in a few Zealots and at least send them to the center of the map and maybe get on top of a Queen. Hopefully get a cancel on the 4th hatchery, but I really don't think that is even going to work out for SKillous.
Yeah, it all depends on when Dark decides to make units. Now, there is a Templar Archives with this as well, so SKillous will have the option to warp in High Templar and morph them into Archons. Archon Zealot is a banger of a unit composition, but yeah, Roach is already coming up, that +1 Roach speed as well. Dark making a few Roaches just for safety. The thing is, he's fully saturated now on 3 bases. He just started up the 4th hatch, so he's going to be making non-stop units pretty much regardless.
Dark is one of the few guys out there that absolutely loves Roaches and Hydras. The most bizarre one was the game on Oceanborn against Showtime, where he dropped an 8-minute Roach war and went for Roach speed. He's like, yeah, Roach Hydra over here. I'm like, no way.
Should have gone Hive. No, everybody's shouting in the green room, we should have gone Hive. He's like, no, Roaches is all I need.
He made it work, but here I do actually really like it, because I believe that Roach Hydra is actually better than people give it credits for. It's just not good in slow games. If the Protoss can sit back, get double Robo, get a whole bunch of High Templars, cannons and batteries, of course Roach Hydra is incredibly timing sensitive. If it just battles Archons and Zealots, I think Roach Hydra is fantastic. Archons, Zealots and Immortals, a tiny bit more complicated, but I still think Roach Hydra is fantastic. If it's double Robo, Colossus, Disruptors or Storm, yeah, then it's not that good anymore.
This first little bit of harassment from SKillous, not achieving all too much. A couple of the units end up dying there on the side of the Protoss. Well, I guess on the side of the Zerg, but the Protoss units end up falling. It's a Blink follow-up right now and 13 Hydras coming up. It's a strange unit composition. Used to be very popular in the early days of StarCraft II. Oh, don't lose the Prism. That would be extremely costly. Queen's waiting though, at least getting a bit of damage done, forcing that transfusion and a bit of a warp in.
SKillous needs to be very careful that he doesn't throw away too many units here, and he's actually going to cancel that warp, and I think that's good as he dropped the Revelation in the Natural as well. Makes the call right now to drop the Robo Bay immediately, but I'm just wondering, is that already a little bit too late? Because Dark is not like some of the European Zergs, and it doesn't matter if you think of Serral or Raynor or Lambo or a Laser, all of those guys like to go up to 80+ workers. No, Dark is like 69 workers, that's fine. That means I've got way more army supply, a little bit earlier than they expected, and I personally don't really see the value in that Blink upgrade, because Blink Stalkers I don't think are going to cut it in low numbers against crazy amount of Roaches and Hydras. That War Prism is very close to Hydras, and that is a disaster. SKillous is going to shake his hand. He was already down a lot of army supply, and it just got a whole lot worse, Loco.
That 4th Nexus is certainly going to go down. One thing that Dark has been doing a lot in this tournament is go mute us, so maybe that's something that was in the back of SKillous' mind, but this push over here at the 3rd base is way too big. Yeah. Losing the 2 Archons there, I mean, even with the 2 Archons, this would be a very difficult attack to hold.
Absolutely.
You have 2 Zealots dealing some damage, but that's not enough.
Even with that War Prism and the best War Prism micro, this would be difficult because Dark shows up with a way bigger army than most Protoss players expected. If Nurture was in the building, he'd be proud of these Roaches and Hydra shining, as Dark will take a 1-0 lead in a very typical Dark way.
Yeah.
Dark does not rush up to 80+ workers. He does not feel forced to drop an early infestation pit and it's Hive Tech or nothing. No, Dark loves Roaches and Hydras, and yeah, I think SKillous obviously didn't do a lot of things wrong, but the Blink upgrade, it didn't really make that much sense to me.
No.
The biggest mistake is without a doubt losing this War Prism, but I think overall, even with that Prism, it'd be damn difficult, man. You look at the army supplies, you need great force fields, and then need to buy time with cannons and batteries. It's just so freaking hard.
Yeah, so what really went wrong here for SKillous is just that overall his early game was not quite as strong as Dark's. His 3rd Nexus ended up getting cancelled once. That really slowed him down. And at the same time, he also really didn't deal any damage on the side of the Zerg. So, I mean, he killed an Overlord or 2, right? That was really about it. A few drones ended up falling, but Dark Going for what I almost consider to be a bit of a skill check, right? Just a good old Roach Hydra push. You send everything across the map, see how your opponent can handle it. And
it's different though, right? Because like obviously a lot of people love playing Roach Hydra for a while, and it pretty much completely disappeared from the ladder. And there's a reason for that. Because like, all right, it is just not that good. Roaches are kind of cheap. Hydras are not cheap, so you need a lot of drones for Roach Hydra. At least that's how people look at it. And it's like, well, but if you need a lot of drones, it's going to arrive very late. And Hydras attacking into Storm, up ramps, disaster. Attacking into Colossus, a disaster. Attacking into multiple Disruptors is normally a disaster. So Dark clearly does this incredibly well. I do still think that if you're skillless and you open up with charge, then you need to play with a bit more heart and commitment. You need to find something. And if you don't want to play Zealot charge, then you could have gone Blink immediately.
Exactly.
But to have Blink as a follow-up on charge, where charge didn't do a whole lot, yeah, I think that's already too much against a man who will just show up at your front door and is going to punish you for it. In the bottom right side, taking the 1-0 lead, the favorite in this best of 5, it's Dark.
And his opponent, all the way in the opposite corner of Golden Aura, representing Team Liquid, it's SKillous. All right. I don't think SKillous is really going to make any drastic changes in this game. I'm thinking he will probably try a similar opener, but then, well, get more damage done while also at the same time not getting that third base delayed. It's little things in a game of SC2 that really add up over the course of a match. And it's not that, like, other than that Prism Snipe, right? But before that already, SKillous was in a pretty rough spot. It's not that anything monstrously went wrong for him, it's just that everything combined, it wasn't a brilliant position, and Dark just had way too many units.
Well, we made it 2 Oracles, didn't do too much with it. We had a Void Ray that sure picked off Overlords on SKillous' side of the map, so it kind of kept Dark in the dark, no pun intended. But obviously Dark was kind of ready for it, because Dark loves building safety roaches pretty early on anyway. So yeah, if SKillous tried to surprise Dark with that hero build, well, Dark was not very surprised. The Archon harass attempt in the main, it didn't really do a whole lot. It's not necessarily that a lot of things went wrong for SKillous, but also nothing went truly right.
Exactly.
And then it kind of felt he went down multiple paths rather quickly. He's like, all right, 4th base. I had Zealot charge, now I'll go Blink. I should drop a Robo Bay and I already have a Templar Archives. And Dark's like, yeah, that's a lot of things, mate. What happens if I just spam Roaches and Hydras of 69 drones? A lot of Zergs will look at them and be like, yeah, but that's an all-in, mate. Like, if your first attack doesn't work, what are you going to do? You can't go hive tech of 69 drones, and then Dark is just a Giga Chat. It's like, yeah, but what if I don't have to worry about that because it will work? And it's like, well, then it's just a great timing attack, I guess.
Yeah, now Dark definitely a player with a massive range of strategies, right? I wonder if he goes into these games already with his strategies prepared. In a lot of the games that we see him play, it seems like he's exploiting a weakness that he's discovered in his opponent's games. Like, for example, in that game you brought up against Showtime, he saw that there was tons of static defense at the 3rd, tons of photon cannons over at the 4th as well, but the natural was pretty wide open. He's like, yeah, I guess I can just do a cheeky little attack in that direction. And yeah, maybe he does have a specific plan of something that he thinks would be good, but as soon as he sees an opportunity, he will grab it with both hands, be it a Nidus Worm, a Muta transition. There's so many options once Zerg gets up to that lair tech that SKillous has to be prepared for all of it, and that's what makes PvZ so difficult.
I think what makes Dark as well is that he's so damn decisive, right? He just goes down a certain path and he says, this is my way. He makes Mutas and it's like, oh, a lot of Zergs will stop after 10 Mutas because the Protoss has kind of warped in a couple of cannons. They built their first 2 Phoenixes and that's it. Dark is going to double down, triple down, and every single time you think he's going to do something else, he will still go further and he's going to be able to overrun you. I'm very curious to see what the plan is here on Golden Aura. A big map. A lot of people will tell you that this is a very good Protoss map, just because you can actually get some pretty cool wall-offs going with a pylon and a couple of gateways. So a 3-base setup is incredibly easy to defend, thinking up to 4 bases and obviously 4-base Protoss. I mean, the world is your oyster as a 4-base Protoss. You can do whatever the hell you want, and then eventually, slowly but steady, take a 5th. And even if the Zerg takes all their bases very quickly, as a Protoss player on Golden Aura, you're not stressed about that, because there are only 2 bases you truly worry about. And that's bottom left and top right. And the only thing you really need to do in the late game as a Protoss is make sure you get one of those 2. And if that's the case, you're fine, because a Zerg can never really take that base at 9 o'clock, can never take the base at 12 o'clock. So you can chill on 4 bases forever, as long as the Zerg does not mind too much from the corner bases.
You're absolutely right. Dark, by the way, opening up a little bit differently this time around. It's been a 15 hatch, so the third Nexus is going to go up unhindered because link speed is only, well, just now about 90% or so of the way done. That means that SKillous gets to find his groove a little bit more, right? Flying around with these oracles already. Not finding a ton of damage just yet, but at the very least, he's not been slowed down in any way, shape, or form.
No, that is nice, but that would also be very hard to accomplish, I guess, on Golden Aura. And maybe he did respect that idea, right, of Dark again showing up with those links. That's why he made an earlier battery. I do think as a Protoss, you want something. Whether it's a random queen, a couple of active creep tumors, or a drone in transit, right? A drone that's being sent out to morph into a hatchery. Just to drop a couple of revelations is, in general, I think not something that's going to spark a whole lot of joy. This Oracle is in the middle of nowhere. SKillous with a big mistake. Oracles are expensive, and they are more important than I would almost say that any other unit he has, definitely at the moment, especially against a man like Dark, because you already mentioned the Spire. You already mentioned those Nidus networks, those timing attacks that are so devastating. Like right now, everything looks normal on Dark side of the map. Yeah. But if you lose your Oracles, you lose sight of Dark for a split second. He can drop a Nidus and he's at your front door with Queens, Roaches, Ravagers. And if you're not ready as a Protoss, it is just the end. If a Spire goes down and you're not ready, that too can become incredibly painful. So you can't lose units like that.
Well, here we go. We are at Lair Tech. For now, it's just a Roach speed upgrade, so nothing really being rushed out. Dark scouting around a little bit, sees that there's nothing all too fishy going on, as we do actually have a pretty quick Psionic Storm research right here for SKillous. Not messing around with that charge research this time around. He's decided to go straight into Blink. So this is Blink with +1 together with Storm. What do you make of this build?
Very strong defensively, like seemed like a nightmare to attack into, right? Blink Stalkers.
Mutas.
Yeah, no, it would be good against Mutas. I guess SKillous just wants to actually play a game. Because game 1, Alcyone, SKillous will look at that and be like, yeah, that wasn't a game. Obviously, it counts in the tournament. You're fuming over it. There's your Nidus network and an infestation pit, by the way. So this could very well be Roaches, Lynx, Queens, and Swarmos. Yeah,
exactly. Swarmos immediately come to mind when I see that combination of units. Not a very commonly played unit, though, in SC2 in general, and that is because it does have quite a few weaknesses, but there we go. 8 Swarm hosts coming up.
Oracle takes a lot of damage.
Yeah. So, the main problem...
Oh my, no!
High Templar getting surrounded. They just about had their Storm upgrade done as well. They had a lot of energy available. That's exceptionally expensive for SKillous. Losing an Oracle, losing those Templar, it's the little things. We already brought it up. It adds up over the course of a game. So Swarm hosts usually have a timer, but that timer, well, it's going to be a lot longer in this game.
Yep, Swarmos' weakness in general is a bunch of Archons and batteries and Immortals as well, right? High HP
Storm
units.
also works.
Storm is kind of good to buy time here and there, but eventually you run out of Storm and you don't want to Storm 3 units forever. I'm afraid that this is just not the best of 5 so far that SKillous was looking for at all. It kind of feels like it's turning into a bit of a disaster. He is getting extra batteries, he is getting cannons, but the first wave of Locusts are here. A couple of Stalkers are really not going to battle this incredibly well. Dark should probably gun down that battery immediately. That's going to happen. A Storm does land on this wave of Locusts, but it's just the first of so many waves. And without a Prism, it feels that it's inevitable that these Locusts will find their targets. Whether those are High Templars or Stalkers that have nowhere to blink to. SKillous now goes triple Robo, by the way. He's on 44 army supply, Loco. Yeah. And he's warping in 3 Robos at once.
That is going to be something he will barely be able to, well, make units out of as well. Hive coming up. We have a Hydralisk Den. Dark will probably be transitioning from here, if he needs it, into Lurkers as well, which is going to make any sort of follow-up attack here from the Protoss very difficult to execute. This Nexus is honestly very exposed. I think you could target it down. I guess there are quite a few Storms here, but...
And there is a battery as well, and that battery could get overcharged, I think. Nope, there's a couple of Roaches and Lynx getting on top of High Templars. One of the High Templars died. The Nexus is going to fall as well. The only saving grace here for SKillous is that he hasn't lost a lot of probes yet. You can recover from losing an HC. You can recover from losing a Nexus. What you in general cannot recover from is if you lose an entire mineral line. Because by the time that you have then resaturated that mineral line, it's going to happen again and again. I love the Immortals because I do think having some high HP units is incredibly useful also to deal with those Roaches. But you need a War Prism. Without a War Prism, I think the Locusts are simply too scary.
You're absolutely right. So SKillous probably aiming to go for a big attack towards the other side of the map. That's usually one of your best chances against this particular style. Dark, however, not planning around on sitting on roaches and swarmos for a super long time. He can transition towards lurkers, and even though immortals can sort of work against low numbers of lurkers, it is not really the weapon of choice in most games. And I think SKillous really only has one choice now, right? He has to go for some sort of attack, and there is a window for him.
It's going to be difficult. There's a couple of links just got unstuck. Should have gone for the Immortal probably. I'm not sure if it would have died because obviously Immortals have a barrier and it takes a little while. I think Dark should try to indeed attack the main or just go for the main altogether, and I hope that SKillous for his sake is paying attention. Dark did just use all of the Locusts though. As the Lings and Roaches get on top of the 4th base, that is indeed a kill, Loco. No cancel on that. One of the Immortals is going to get targeted. For Dark to free up a tiny bit of supply, it's not that bad. Locusts are in the 9 o'clock base, but keep an eye on the main. I think that Nidus is up.
Yeah, I think there's well, I thought it was going to be lurkers, but it is indeed Swarmos ready to pop into the main base. SKillous is being overwhelmed. He does, however, have one shot. This is an army that has to be respected from the Protoss. It's about 100 supply, which is similar to that of the Zerg, and a lot of that Zerg supply is caught up in Swarmos, which are a very supply-heavy unit. Problem is, you brought it up already, no Prism, no Observer. Oh my Templar! Oh no! That's by far the most important unit here in my mind.
Yep, well, he's got one left, Loco. Let that storm count. The lurkers are here. I believe Seismic Spines is close to finishing up. We don't just have no War Prism. There's one unit that's even more important, and that's the Observer. Maybe there's one left over Oracle, I think, right? Then we have, we have 2 Observers, Oracles even. So there is some detection, and SKillous does find that Nidus. One of the Immortals just got picked up by a bunch of Locusts. This game is getting very hectic, very scrappy. SKillous trying to go up to 4 bases one more time. He has warped in a few more High Templars. He's got a big army, but it also feels that that's the army that really needs to get the job done. And now Dark's army is about to get a whole bunch scarier. We have another Nidus attack in the main. This time around, okay, 3 Stalkers on top of it, that's good. Dark definitely missed a little opportunity not using that Nidus earlier, but I think he fired all the Locusts right before that Nidus came online. The biggest thing that I see are the lurkers. It's not just your standard lurkers anymore. Seismic Spines is done. Adaptive Talents, aka the speed upgrade for the lurkers, is about to finish up, and I don't know if SKillous can really deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. Previously, this Protoss army, well, I was thinking about moving across the map. Now it's Dark, who goes with a similar unit composition that he already had towards the Protoss' site. SKillous is double expanding. If somehow, some way, he manages to survive this push and he can keep those bases around, this is recoverable. This Protoss army is big. There's even a fleet beacon right now, which may be a little bit ambitious. Lurkers get underground. They're starting to shoot their spines at the Zealots. Immortals coming in from the side. Swarmos are going to be able to, well, unleash another wave, but those storms are good. Immortals are trying their best to get rid of all of those lurkers, and they are disappearing.
That's actually a pretty good fight. We had one Stalker in the bottom side of the map, soaking up a couple of lurker shots. Slow Zealots coming down the ramp of the 3rd base of SKillous. So those spikes of the lurkers were kind of going in many different directions, and that made it an okay-ish fight for SKillous. Kind of felt that he needs a bit more than okay-ish, but it is important to mention that Dark is not mega rich. Dark is kind of rich, but this is also, it's kind of Dark's comfort zone, right? 70-something workers, no money in the bank, barely maxed out, not even maxed out. It's okay. It always feels that Dark is right where he wants to be. It feels risky because, like, Dark, you're like one bad fight away from losing the game, and he's like, I know, but that bad fight won't happen.
Lurkers, by the way, unloading in the main base right now, or at the very least they could have. Luckily here for SKillous, that did not happen because he doesn't have detection nearby. Second Stargate coming up, so SKillous trying desperately to go into a Sky-Toss transition, which is a decent answer, of course, versus a lurker-based army, but Dark could always just add on Vipers as well if he really needs to. Carriers coming up. Charge is, well, finished at this point.
There's a big problem with carriers, and that's that the build time is incredibly long. A War Prism is going to fly on top of Hydras, and it will die. SKillous has a lot of supply. It is definitely not here. He is going to storm a couple of times. We have some picture-in-picture action, and he gets some of the lurkers, but he doesn't get all of the lurkers. The Immortal dies. Now High Templars with auto-attack are trying to kill the lurkers. It just kind of feels everywhere we look. It's Dark taking absolutely fantastic fights, and SKillous is starting to fall apart here. Put up more of a fight than he did in game 1, but Dark is just a master of ZVP. He does it in his own way, and he looks damn good doing it. It's a 2-0 lead for Dark.
Absolutely. Fantastic play right there from Dark, right? He loves these chaotic situations. A lot of players, especially when they are thrown into a spot that they haven't been in before, that's where they feel most uncomfortable. But Well, you already brought it up earlier too. Whenever Dark is behind, he seems to power up. Whenever he's in a scrappy situation like the one we just witnessed, the man is incredibly good. And honestly, it's not even one thing, right? It's nice when you can point at one thing that went blatantly wrong for you in a game of SC2, but SKillous had loads of little moments, like for example, those Templar going down. Overall, he did not play poorly. He held on for a long time, but there just wasn't enough here. He needs to tighten it up if he wants to obtain a victory against Dark, and Dark just looks supreme here.
What's kind of interesting is that if you think about this game, you think of it as a bit of a train wreck of a game for SKillous, where he definitely did not play poorly, but every single opening he gave to Dark, Dark bounced on it, capitalized on it, punished him, yet the numbers were actually always kind of close, and the strength of the armies was somewhat comparable. And I think there are a couple of moments where if you resume it from replay and say like, hey, if you do this slightly different and that slightly different, this game could have had a different outcome, yet it did not feel like that at all. It really felt we are just watching a Dark highlight reel over here, right? Where it's like, look at Dark's finest moments in IEM Katowice. He kills High Templars, Knight is here, Lurk is there. Like, it felt that it was all Dark, and that's definitely what it looked like as well.
Yeah.
Yet, if you analyze the numbers, you analyze the strength of the armies, it's like, actually, somewhat of a close game, but why did it not feel like a close game?
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you throw in the mutas from some of the previous games and you would have a perfect highlight reel just from about 2 matches. With a few small adjustments, I think this game could have definitely looked different. When those first 2 Templar went down, that just made everything after that so much harder. Either way, game number 3. It's loaded up. It's gonna be Solaris. Spawning right here in the bottom left-hand corner. Playing with the Red Zerg drones, we have Dark.
The man who has won pretty much everything besides IEM Katowice, and honestly he's starting to look like one of the main candidates to potentially lift the trophy in the top right side. One of the 2 remaining Protoss players who is going to try to prevent that from happening. He stayed alive with a miracle in the group stage. He needs another miracle to break into the quarterfinals. Can we turn things around? This is Team Liquid's SKillous.
Yeah, just staying here in this series mentally is very critical for SKillous, right? It's easy at this point to throw the towel in the ring and, well, to tell everybody, look, I tried my best, but this is where my journey ends. SKillous is a phenomenal player. He's been practicing a ton over the last couple of years, and he's made significant improvements as well. Nice little scout right there. That triangle location is apparently visible if you get that probe right in that little nuke.
What about this spawning pool location, Loco? Analyze that.
He just wanted to make sure that the probe was right where he expected it. He may have actually had a glimpse of it with the Overlord. He's like, wait a second, are you maybe making a pylon over there in the corner? Ah, no, I guess I'll plant it over here.
This is definitely a more unique spawning pool location.
It's like a Zerg versus Zerg spawning pool right now, but then a little far from the ramp.
It also feels that it's inevitable that there won't be a Warp Prism warping in 6 Zealots and killing this spawning pool eventually.
Well, if Dark is that far into SKillous' head at this point as well, he'll probably be pretty happy with that pool placement. But yeah, it is definitely in a bit of a funky spot. Either way.
Also, whenever a player like Dark takes the triangle, whether he's forced to or he did it by choice, as a Protoss, I would always start worrying a little bit.
Queen Mother, right? It's scary here.
Just one of the many things. Like, there are so many different things that Dark could do. Dark is the kind of guy to randomly link flood you, and if he gets your first adept, you're going to be in trouble already. Dark is the kind of guy to rally a couple of queens and roaches to the other side of the map early on. Even just queens and links to the other side of the map. Like, Dark can do so many different things. I would find this scary. Like, on one hand, as a Protoss, you're happy. You're like, oh, okay. It means that his economy is like slightly slower than it could have been, because the drones that are built in the main, they can't immediately start mining. They kind of have to go all the way to the low ground. But it's also scary because any unit he produces is closer to mine natural than it normally would be. And Dark can be so aggressive. He doesn't have to be.
It's intimidating, right? Because normally Zerg players expend away from you, and now he's expending right next to the green zone in the direction of where the Protoss is at. It's a bit scary for sure, especially when you're 2-0 behind. Doesn't necessarily have to mean anything, but Dark is certainly aware of that mindset, and we'll see if he decides to bring the heat. So far, I mean, you mentioned it, right? His late game has been phenomenal lately. He's been looking very strong in that department of the game, but in a lot of matches, he doesn't even want to get it to that point. He's trying to end it as quickly as possible, and he'll only really play it if he needs to. So even though this hatchery positioning doesn't have to mean anything, it is something that goes through SKillous' mind.
That is a mega quick Twilight, by the way, while also opening up with a Stargate. So we have one Stargate into a very quick Oracle, and the follow-up is going to be a Twilight Council.
Oh.
I assume this is going to be for Resonating Glaive Adept, as there are a couple of Zerglings here, saving that Overlord for now. Imagine if one of the links would have split off, by the way, and ran into the main. That would have been very bad news for SKillous, because he's not even building a second Oracle yet, or a Void Ray, or anything out of that Stargate. So this must be for very quick Glaives, and he's going to try to surprise Dark with it. And anything else would kind of surprise me, but he is not happy. His SKillous is kind of fuming. It's definitely been... Oh, it's actually super quick blink.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the Goblin. Goblin had a build for a while where it's basically a 2.5 base pure blink stalker all in. No forge, no robo. You just spam stalkers forever, and it's actually pretty good against Zergs, especially Zergs that don't always check what you're doing and kind of just form their own game plan. But they're like, hey, I'm gonna build units on this specific moment. These crazy all-ins could work. What I do think is going to be very important if SKillous is gonna go down that right, like Goblin went many times, is that he eventually sneaks a probe to the other side of the map to build a pylon and a gate. If that's actually what he wants to do, you need those warp-ins on the other side of the map.
So one way in which the Dark can pick up on this is seeing the amount of oracles, because in the previous game at this point we already had multiples, and it's just been a single one. That is a little funky. Dark actually queued up that Overlord right as that first Overlord in the natural was being attacked. So he is sending a scout, but it's going to be super duper late. He's not going to get any vision anytime soon, but he is already a little bit suspicious as we switch it over to the first person view right here of the Zerg player.
Yep.
The big question here for Dark is, when do you stop making drones and when do you start making army? He sees a lot of stalkers here. That's a bit weird.
No, he definitely sees way more stalkers than I think he would normally expect. He didn't really scout too much around his own main bases yet, but we know he's safe in that regard. What he did do, by the way, is build a couple of Spore Crawlers, and that's not necessarily needed against a single Oracle. So SKillous is here. It's going to drop a Revelation on the edge of creep, but obviously this is not a Stalker count that's really going to win this game. Rico is going to be forced immediately. The Oracle took a lot of damage, but I don't know if it went down. Whatever SKillous so far had in mind with this build, it's not really working out yet. At least the Oracle survived. That is a lot of Zerglings, and I hope for SKillous he's got units on hold position in the natural. He's now going to build a Robo. The Forge apparently was warped in as well during that move out, but whatever that move out was intended to do, Loco, I don't think it really worked out.
Absolutely not. Dark right now gets to play his own game again. SKillous is going to be forced into a defensive position for at least a few minutes. Lair tech at this point is done. Okay, tech of choice for Dark this time around is once more the Hydralisk Den. Yeah, there is a Robo Bay coming up nice and early here this time around for SKillous, though.
That's a very early Robo Bay. Like, that could really come into play early enough. Also, you open up with Blink. So I actually think making a couple of Disruptors here would be good against the man who loves Roach Hydra so damn much in this day and age. I'd say maybe out of the 3 games, though, I still like this start the most for SKillous. The work accounts are pretty even. Yeah, that move out wasn't fantastic, but I like where he's going. Second Robo Bay, +1 is on the way. He already has Blink. Blink defensively is incredibly good. He didn't lose any Oracles yet because he only made one and it's still alive. But actually, it looks pretty alright. 67 workers against 67 workers, as long as he doesn't take any damage from these links here. And he realized that half his army is bolted up in the natural at the moment.
We're actually going to go into Colossi here, which I don't mind at all.
It's also good.
Yeah, especially against the Hydralisk-based style. So I don't know if SKillous had vision of the Hydralisk Den. I don't think so, because it is tucked away in the natural expansion. Although he's going to see it right now. Perfect revelation after he started up the Colossus. And that's a nice confirmation. Right now, Colossi are awesome against Hydras. They are not very good against Roaches at all. So you gotta be careful. If Zerg decides to double down on the Roach tech and you're just stuck with Stalkers and a bunch of Colossus, it can still be very, very scary. But I'm with you. The economy here for Dark is really nothing to write home about, and he is very committed.
We're gonna sneak in and disrupt it there as well. I think 1 or 2 Colossus is also nice because Dark still has a lot of links. And those links can trip up the Blink Stalkers quite a bit. You're spot on about the Roaches, and I guess that's what the Stalkers are for, but then supported Stalkers don't die against the Zerglings, right? That's where the Colossus comes into play. Love these kind of games because you see potential both ways. I can see a way where Dark just survives for a while, goes into Hive Tech, drops the Lurker, then sneaks out a couple of Vipers, take it from there. That is exactly what Dark is going to do. There's also a world where SKillous is perfectly fine defensively, and then he can go up to 4 bases, and he can just kind of play the nice PvZ that he had in mind. For the first time in this series, I feel like we're 9 minutes in, and it doesn't feel like it's all Dark. It's actually a very competitive game that can go in many different ways.
No, absolutely. Dark has decided I think originally wanted to go for a big attack, but then he noticed that something set him off to play defensively instead. So he's going into Hive together with the Lurker then. We'll probably get to watch a little bit of that Hydra Lurker Viper Zergling base composition. As one of the Colossus, you're supposed to counter the Zerglings. Okay, backs up to the safety of the shield battery. A lot of Stalkers in the meantime in the middle of the map. These are the types of moves though. I mean, he escapes just barely here, but those are the types of moves that SKillous cannot repeat.
Nope, SKillous needs to be very, very cautious. He had a bunch of disruptors who are all just still near that Nexus. So far, he kind of get away with it. Blinks forward now. This is going to be, I think, a very nice engagement for Dark, because Links come in from every angle. Roaches and Hydra surrounding this Protoss army. And the balls were okay, but in the end, all of these Robo units are so exposed. Why did SKillous move out there when he's got so much going for himself? Double Forge, double Robo, going up to 4 bases. He just exposed all those key expensive Protoss units. And for what, Loco? What was there? There was nothing to gain.
I think he saw 2 Lurkers or so being warped in. He's like, ooh, don't mind if I do, because they were in a very exposed location, but Dark immediately bouncing on that opportunity. Now that 4th Nexus is in a world of trouble. You said 2 minutes ago that this match at the very least wasn't all Dark. Well, maybe Dark thinks otherwise now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a perfect engagement by Dark. It's a perfect surround, but there was no reason for SKillous to be there. If SKillous waits a little while longer, all these upgrades kick in. Sexy Hydra split here by Dark, by the way. The second one is going to connect with a couple of Hydras. Shield battery overcharge is somewhat exposed. Dark could gun it down, and if he wants to take this fight, he absolutely should. SKillous is counting down the seconds for a few more disruptor shots available, but it feels like these seconds are taking forever. The Lurkers are here. They're going to get on top of the Nexus, and just like that, it's Dark who punches his ticket into the quarterfinals of the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice. From the beginning to the end of this round.